We are counting down the top 10 reasons Indonesia's geography is truly one of a kind. From staggering archipelagos and continents colliding beneath your feet, to rainforests older than the dinosaurs and invisible borders that split entire worlds of wildlife, each entry reveals a new extreme you will not find anywhere else on Earth. Some even reach far beyond Indonesia to shape the global climate and history itself. Which unique feature claims the ultimate spot? Let us begin with number 10. Indonesia stretches across a staggering 17,504 islands, scattered like a chain of emeralds over more than 5,000 kilometers of ocean. From the western tip near Sumatra to the far eastern edge of Papua, the country spans 3 time zones: Western, Central, and Eastern Indonesia time. Placed on a map of Europe, that distance would run from Ireland all the way to Iran. Yet only about 6,000 of these islands are inhabited, leaving thousands as untouched wilderness or seasonal outposts. This vast, fragmented geography has shaped a nation where diversity is built into daily life. With over 700 living languages spoken, second only to Papua New Guinea, Indonesia is a global leader in linguistic variety. On some islands, the next village over might speak a language entirely different from its neighbours. The coastline, measuring nearly 95,000 kilometres, weaves through countless cultures and histories. Here, water is both a bridge and a barrier, fostering isolation and exchange in equal measure. Indonesia's motto, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which means unity in diversity, reflects the challenge and the wonder of holding together the world's largest, most scattered archipelago. Indonesia sits at the intersection of 3 of Earth's most powerful tectonic plates: the Eurasian, the Indo-Australian, and the Pacific. This collision zone fuels a chain reaction of geological unrest, making Indonesia the most volcanically active country in the world. Around 130 volcanoes are currently classified as active, their cones rising from Sumatra to the Moluccas, shaping the skyline and the lives of millions. The land itself is constantly shifting. Off the coast of Sumatra, the Indo-Australian plate dives beneath the Eurasian plate along the Sunda Trench, generating immense pressure. When that pressure releases, the results can be catastrophic. On December 26, 2004, a magnitude 9.1 earthquake ruptured the sea floor, unleashing a tsunami that swept across the Indian Ocean and killed more than 230,000 people in 14 countries. Indonesia suffered the greatest loss. In Indonesia, volcanoes and earthquakes are not distant threats. They are part of daily life, the price of living atop the planet's restless engine. On the island of Sumbawa, in April 1815, Mount Tambora unleashed the most powerful volcanic eruption in recorded history. The mountain's summit exploded with such force that the blast was heard more than 2,000 kilometres away, echoing across islands and seas as far as Sumatra. Over the course of several days, Tambora hurled an estimated 150 cubic kilometres of ash and rock into the sky. That was enough material to bury the city of London under a layer nearly 400 metres deep. Darkness fell at midday as ash blotted out the sun, and pyroclastic flows incinerated everything in their path. Around 10,000 people died almost instantly on Sumbawa and neighbouring islands, but the disaster did not stop there. In the months that followed, famine and disease swept through the region, raising the death toll to between 50,000 and 60,000. Tambora's reach extended far beyond Indonesia. Sulfur aerosols from the eruption circled the globe, reflecting sunlight and causing worldwide temperatures to drop by as much as 0.7 degrees Celsius. The year 1816 became known as the year without a summer. Across Europe and North America, crops failed, frost struck in June and snow fell in July. Grain prices soared, food riots erupted, and thousands of families abandoned their homes in search of better land. Tambora's eruption, born of Indonesia's restless geology, transformed global climate and triggered human crises across continents. It is proof that even a remote volcano can rewrite the world's history. A narrow stretch of water separates the islands of Bali and Lombok, just 35 kilometers across at its closest point. Yet this sliver of sea, the Lombok Strait, is over 300 meters deep, a gulf that even during the lowest ice ages never revealed a land bridge. In the mid-19th century, British naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace travelled these islands and noticed a mystery. On Bali, the birds and mammals looked familiar to anyone who had travelled in Asia. But on Lombok, just a short sail east, the wildlife belonged to a different world, more akin to Australia and New Guinea. Wallace's notebooks from 1856, now preserved in London, record his growing awareness of this invisible boundary. In his words, every species was replaced by a closely allied one as soon as we crossed the strait. The sharp divide he mapped became known as the Wallace Line. To the west, the islands are extensions of the Asian continent, once joined to the mainland by broad, shallow seas. To the east, islands rise from deep water, isolated for millions of years. Modern genetic studies confirm what Wallace saw. Species on either side of the line are separated by ancient evolutionary histories. Indonesia is the only country that straddles this divide, where a short boat ride can take you from tigers and elephants to cockatoos and Komodo dragons. The Wallace Line is not just a line on a map, it is a living boundary between two worlds, drawn by the deep sea and the slow pace of evolution. Indonesia holds a distinction shared by only 16 other nations. It is officially recognized as a mega-diverse country. This archipelago alone is home to 10 to 15% of all known species on Earth, a staggering share for a single country. Nowhere else matches its count of mammal species, with around 723 documented, many found nowhere else. The forests shelter more than 17,000 plant species that exist only within Indonesia's borders, their roots locked in soils shaped by ancient volcanoes and monsoon rains. The country's rainforests, the third largest on the planet after the Amazon and Congo basin, stretch across islands from Sumatra to Papua, forming a living archive of evolutionary history. But this extraordinary wealth of life is also at risk. Less than 80 Javan rhinos remain, their last refuge a single park on the western tip of Java. The Sumatran tiger, once ranging across much of the island, now hangs on with a population estimated between 400 and 600. These numbers are not just statistics. They are the last lines between survival and extinction, written in the language of geography and isolation. Indonesia's biodiversity is a product of its fractured landscape, but that same isolation makes its rarest species especially vulnerable. In this country, the loss of a single patch of forest can mean the disappearance of an entire species from the world forever. On a handful of sun-baked islands in eastern Indonesia, a living relic stalks the savanna. The Komodo dragon, Varanus komodoensis, is the largest lizard on Earth. Males can reach 3 meters in length and tip the scales at up to 90 kilograms. Their jaws are lined with serrated teeth, and their bite delivers a mix of venom and bacteria potent enough to bring down deer and even water buffalo. Fewer than 3,300 Komodo dragons remain in the wild. They exist only on Komodo, Rinca, Gili Motang, Nusa Kodai, and parts of Flores, nowhere else on the planet. This is a textbook case of island gigantism. Isolated from other large predators, the dragons evolved to fill the top spot in their ecosystem. The volcanic landscapes of Komodo National Park, established in 1980 and recognised as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1991, provide their last stronghold. But even here, survival is not guaranteed. In 2019, authorities uncovered a trafficking ring attempting to sell 41 dragons on the black market, each worth tens of thousands of dollars. Smuggling, habitat loss and shrinking prey populations threaten a species already confined to a narrow range. Yet for now, the Komodo dragon endures as an island apex predator, an ancient giant ruling its island domain, a symbol of how Indonesia's fractured geography can produce creatures found nowhere else on Earth. Beneath the surface of Indonesia's turquoise seas lies a world as astonishing as its jungles and volcanoes. The country sits at the heart of the Coral Triangle, a marine region stretching from the Philippines to Papua New Guinea, and nowhere is it richer than in Indonesian waters. Scientists have counted more than 550 species of coral in Raja Ampat alone, a cluster of islands off West Papua. That's more coral species than in the entire Caribbean. In total, the Coral Triangle holds about 76% of all known coral species on Earth, along with over 1,400 species of reef fish in Raja Ampat's reefs. These underwater forests support not only dazzling marine life, but also tens of millions of people. Fishing villages depend on reefs for food and income, while coastal cities rely on healthy corals to buffer storm waves and keep fisheries thriving. But these reefs face growing dangers. Coral bleaching, driven by warming seas, has struck even the most remote atolls. In some places, entire stretches of reef have turned ghostly white after marine heat waves. Destructive fishing methods, like blast fishing, which uses homemade explosives, have shattered delicate coral branches, and pollution from land and overfishing add to the strain. Yet there are signs of hope. Community-led marine reserves in places like Raja Ampat have helped fish stocks rebound and corals recover, showing that protection and local stewardship can make a difference. The Coral Triangle is often called the Amazon of the seas, a living engine of biodiversity and a lifeline for millions. Its fate is tied not just to Indonesia, but to the health of the world's oceans. Java covers just under 139,000 square kilometres, about the size of New York State, yet it is home to nearly 150 million people. That is more than 1,000 people packed into every square kilometre, making Java one of the most densely populated large islands on the planet. This extraordinary concentration is not an accident of history, but a direct outcome of the island's geology. For centuries, eruptions from a chain of volcanoes have blanketed Java in layers of mineral-rich ash. Over time, this ash weathers into andesitic soils, some of the most fertile on Earth. Farmers have carved rice terraces into the hillsides for more than 1,000 years, building elaborate irrigation systems that channel water from crater lakes and mountain springs into emerald field. The result is a landscape where 2 or 3 rice crops can be harvested each year, supporting generations of dense, agrarian communities. This agricultural abundance laid the foundation for Java's cities to grow into sprawling urban centres. Nowhere is this more visible than Jakarta, whose metropolitan area now swells past 30 million residents. The city's highways and commuter trains stretch for dozens of kilometres, connecting a patchwork of neighbourhoods, markets and factories. As rural families sought opportunity, they joined the steady migration into Java's cities, fueling a surge in population that continues today. The island's volcanic heart has given rise to both bounty and burden. While fertile soils have sustained millions, the sheer weight of humanity now presses against the limits of land and resources. Java's story is a living example of how the forces beneath our feet can shape the destiny of entire societies. In North Jakarta, the ground is dropping faster than almost anywhere else on Earth. Some neighbourhoods have sunk more than 4 metres since the late 20th century, with recent measurements showing land subsiding at rates up to 25 centimetres per year. The culprit is hidden beneath the city. Relentless pumping of groundwater to supply homes and factories has drained deep aquifers, causing the soft alluvial ground to compact. The weight of millions of people and their buildings presses the city down even further. Meanwhile, the Java Sea creeps higher with every passing year, pushing saltwater into streets and homes. In districts like Muara Baru, families mark flood heights on their doorways, each line a reminder that the water always wins. Residents raise floors, build makeshift barriers, and watch as their city sinks below the tides. Jakarta's struggle is not just a local problem. With more than 30 million people in its greater metropolitan area, the city's vulnerability threatens the heart of Indonesia's government and economy. By 2019, the crisis had reached a breaking point. President Joko Widodo announced a plan that stunned the world. Indonesia would move its national capital to a new city called Nusantara, deep in the jungles of East Kalimantan, on the island of Borneo. The site, covering 2,560 square kilometres, was chosen for its higher ground and relative safety from earthquakes and volcanoes. The projected cost, between 30 and 35 billion US dollars, makes it one of the largest planned capital relocations in modern times. Construction is underway, guided by a law passed in 2022 that formalised the move. Nusantara is intended to be a symbol of unity and a model for sustainable urban design. But the decision also brings new challenges. The planned capital sits near ancient rainforests and the territories of indigenous Dayak communities, raising concerns about deforestation and land rights. As Jakarta continues to sink, Indonesia is racing to build a new political heart, one shaped by the same forces of geography that have always defined the nation. Deep in the heart of Kalimantan, the forests of Indonesian Borneo reach back through time further than almost any other place on Earth. Scientists trace the lineage of these rainforests to around 130 million years ago, older than the Amazon, older than the Congo. Through countless cycles of climate and sea level, this ancient green world has survived, sheltering a living archive of evolution. Here, the Bornean orangutan swings through the canopy, its shaggy red fur and long arms adapted perfectly for a life among the branches. Borneo is one of only 2 places on the planet where wild orangutans still exist, but their story is now one of survival against the odds. The Bornean orangutan is classified as critically endangered, its numbers falling as forests are cleared for plantations and roads. In these same forests, the pygmy elephant and the clouded leopard move through shadows, each a symbol of the diversity that has flourished in isolation for millions of years. Borneo's forests are more than just a refuge for rare animals. They are the lungs and vaults of the planet. Beneath the tangled roots lies a hidden powerhouse, vast swamps of tropical peat. Over thousands of years, layer upon layer of dead plant material has built up to form peat deposits several metres thick. These peatlands store between 28 billion and 57 billion tonnes of carbon, an amount so immense that it rivals decades of global fossil fuel emissions. But when peat is drained or burned, as in the catastrophic fires of 2015, centuries of stored carbon are released in a matter of weeks, sending choking haze across Southeast Asia and pumping greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Over the past 40 years, Borneo has lost more than 30% of its forest cover. Yet in the mountainous interior and in protected reserves, vast tracts of untouched jungle still remain. These forests are not just a natural wonder, they are a last line of defence against climate change, a final stronghold for species found nowhere else, and a living link to the deep history of life on Earth. The fate of Indonesia's ancient rainforests is a planetary question, connecting geology, biodiversity, and the future climate of us all. Across all 10 extremes, one pattern stands out. Indonesia's geography fuses chaos and abundance into a single living experiment. Here, shifting Earth and colliding continents fuel both disaster and diversity, shaping not just land, but lives. This geography is not just a backdrop, it forces adaptation, resilience, and unity. In a world facing rising seas and fractured ecologies, Indonesia is our lesson in surviving and thriving on the edge. What surprised you most? Let us know below.